Happy Friday, and thanks for tuning in to radiofreerhinecliff.org. And this show in particular, correct me if I'm Norm, I'm your host, Norm. I'm thrilled to be here tonight with Carolyn Marks Blackwood, Rhinecliff's own Carolyn Marks Blackwood. Carolyn, thanks for being here.
I'm honored.
I got to say, so I research people mostly, and spend hours on Friday like digging up people's sordid pasts and whatnot. Yeah, I got a lot of dirt on you, and what hardly ever. I mean, mostly I find people were very interesting. Hardly ever just get big crushes on people. The stuff that you've written and done and that's written about you is so lovely and so endearing, and it's been really fun discovering a bunch of that.
Oh, that's very sweet of you to say.
Well, it's been a sweet process of diving into all of us. But let's come back to that. Let's start at the beginning because there's so much to talk about. You were born.
I was born
a millennia, like forever away from here. In Anchorage.
I thought you were saying a millennia ago.
No. Yeah, I found your age online. It's not nowhere near that. But you were born in Anchorage, Alaska.
Yeah.
There's got to be a story in there.
Well, people do ask why I was born in Alaska, and I always say because my mother was there. But it was because my dad had gone to West Point, and he got to choose where he wanted to be stationed after West Point. And he wanted to go to Alaska for the salmon fishing because he was an avid fisherman. And that was the reason he wanted to go there. And it was my parents' great adventure.
Uh-huh.
I mean, they talked about it, for the rest of their lives.
I love that. Good for him. So were they married when they moved there together?
Yes. My mother was just 18 when she got married, and my dad was like 24. And they I don't know, it just sounded like a great adventure.
Right. And what did he do in the Army?
He was a first lieutenant.
Okay.
And I think he was in Alaska fishing and fighting forest fires a lot.
Oh, wow. Huh.
I mean, that's what I got. I mean, like, my dad told this story about how he was fighting a forest fire, and a friend of his said to him, look, my wife is sick. I need to get back to the base, wherever that was. So they switched planes, and the plane that my dad was going to take crashed.
Yes.
And my dad got home, he said, and I was conceived that night. What a story, huh?
What a story! But also, I mean, that seems to go that way a lot. Same thing after funerals, people, get busy.
Yeah.
Sort of affirming their life, and how interesting. And you've got siblings?
I have 2 sisters.
And were they also a product of the time in Alaska?
No. I was the product of Alaska, and my sisters were born in New York.
Okay.
They were products of New York.
And so did your father stick with the Army after Alaska, or did he leave?
No. My dad, my grandfather started a company on Wall Street, and my grandfather's name was Carl Marks. And this company still exists. It's called Carl Marks and Company.
And it's an investment company.
On Wall Street.
It's right? Investments?
Yeah.
It's
it's a very capitalist
tool. I saw that. I did a double take. It's underlined in exclamation points here.
And CARLMARKS.
Yeah, that's kind of funny.
And he was named Karl Marx because my great grandmother came here when she was 16, and she loved Karl Marx, so she named her son Karl Marx,
but spelled it slightly differently.
Yes.
Right.
So he could be a capitalist.
A capitalist. So your pop came back. And your mom came back. You have 2 other siblings. They're younger, presumably. Do they live nearby? Do you keep in touch with them?
They both live in New York City.
Okay. And you grew up in Great Neck?
Yes.
So when the folks moved back, they landed in Great Neck. And did you graduate high school there?
Yes, I went to Great Neck North Senior High School.
And how was that?
Well, I was a weirdo in high school. I mean, like I was sort of an art girl. I wasn't with it, you know, I wasn't friends with all the popular kids. I was friends with a small group of sort of arty people. And it's really a miracle that I graduated because I cut school my last year to go to Robbie Kogel's house to sing in a band. So
Robbie Kogel?
Robbie Kogel.
Okay. And did the band play out? Did you have a singing career?
I didn't in high school, but then soon after I started to do backup singing. But that's sort of like a whole separate story.
Well, we got tons of time.
Okay. Well, I think music kind of saved my life, you know, and what basically happened was I was singing in my bedroom in front of the mirror for a long time, sometimes in the bathroom because of the acoustics.
Okay. And did you
I
use
was
something,
honing my craft.
Did you use like a hairbrush as a microphone?
Totally. And then when I was 17, I went off to college and I dropped out of college and I joined my new boyfriend, in a commune.
Okay.
Which my parents were thrilled about.
Oh, sure. I'll bet.
Yeah. And
where was college and where was the commune?
That was called New College at Hofstra. It was sort of the sort of funky school, you know, the arty
for
kind of
artsy
school.
kids.
Yeah. And then I moved to Brooklyn to this commune. And there was one of the people in the commune was this guy, Jeff Samuels, who I'm still friends with. And Jeff Samuels wrote for Variety. And he would take me like to see Aretha at Carnegie Hall. And he was helping to produce a record. And he let me, my first time, I sang backups on this record. So it was just like, it was kind of wonderful.
And how old were you?
18.
Recent college dropout, and you find yourself singing backup on a record.
Well, I mean, it was just a one-off. Okay. So what basically happened then was cut to, I mean, I had some auditions, like I sang a few times with Looking Glass, the one that did Brandy. And I'm still very good friends with Elliot Laurie, the one who wrote that
girl,
and
what
sang
a good
it.
wife you would be. That one. That's hilarious.
And Elliot and I are working on something, a series about the 70s and rock and roll. But
you're working on that right now.
Yeah, Elliot and I are.
Sort of a documentary on.
No, a series.
Oh, okay. So like creative fiction kind of.
Sort of mining our lives.
That sounds like a blast.
Yeah, it is a blast.
And
a blast from the past.
So the two of you, other names of people you know must come up. Do you contact them for insights or episodes? Or
I'm contacting people about doing music for it.
Mm-hmm.
But what basically happened is that I got, like, at age 20, my boyfriend and I decided we'd buckle down. And I went to Rutgers, and he got into grad school at Rutgers because he had already graduated. And I had done so poorly in high school that I had to beg my way into college. I mean, like I said to them, look, if I get all A's, I'll go to the night school. You choose the courses. And if I get all A's, will you let me in? And they said yes. And I did. And then I started to get a master's degree at the same time I was getting an undergraduate degree.
Was that at Rutgers?
Yeah. It was at Livingston College.
Okay.
Which was the other sort of revolutionary school.
Right. For older artsy kids.
Well, I was the oldest.
Okay.
I was 20.
Yeah.
Anyway, what happened, I sound like, I sound like such a misanthrope, but anyway.
Do you? Not yet.
So I'm in school for sociology.
Okay.
And this college had the best jazz department. Like Penny Barron was my piano teacher, and
Nice.
I mean, incredible people. So I was in a practice room one day, and I was taking all these courses. Sociology was kind of languishing, and music was flourishing. And I'm in a practice room one day singing and playing, and this knock on the door, and someone walks in, and he says, hey, I'm here to do a master class, a bass master class. Can I listen to you? And I said, well, sure. So I'm singing away. So he said, well, I have to go now. Ron Carter and I are here to do this master class.
Nice.
His name was Bob Cranshaw. And he said, would you like to come down to Hoppers and sing with us? And
what's Hoppers?
Hoppers was a jazz club.
Okay.
And would you like to come sing with the Joe Newman Quartet? I hope that my voice doesn't sound too froggy, but I have horrible allergies.
Oh, no.
Okay.
You would probably help some of this bourbon you brought.
Maybe you should pour some.
Yep. Do you want me to pour?
Oh, do you want me to?
Yeah, sure.
Okay.
Or our fabulous engineer,
okay,
founder of the station, could pour.
Anyway, so I went down to Hoppers like around 4 times and sat in the audience, and they would wave to me, you want to come up now? And I would go, no. I was too scared.
And was it in the city or in
It was
New
in
Jersey?
the city.
Okay.
So then the 4th time it worked, and I got up and I sang Someone to Watch Over Me in B flat. And what happened was I did the version that Ella Fitzgerald did, where she double timed the bridge.
Uh-huh.
So I was standing there. I had finished the bridge, and there were like 16 bars left where I had already gone through the bridge. Anyway, I thought, well, that was a disaster. So I sat back down, but they asked me if I wanted to sing with them.
Nice.
So...
Well, because they probably knew what had happened. They're like, oh, she did the Ella version, and now there's all this time left over.
I don't know, but I was flabbergasted. Anyway, it turned out Bob Cranshaw was the biggest contractor for singers and musicians in the city. So I called up a friend and I said, do you have any apartments in your building? And they said, we're moving, you can have our apartment. And I kind of like left my husband, who was going to Cambridge University, and I just
like
quit school.
Cambridge over in England?
Yeah. And I quit school, and I just started a singing career.
Started living the jazz life in Manhattan.
And rock and roll.
Oh, so good. So this is like 73, 4, thereabouts?
74.
Uh-huh.
And it was Saturday Night Live. He was in the Saturday Night Live band. And so Saturday Night Live, I was going to all the rehearsals and all the, I was in the green room of Saturday Night Live every week.
Right.
And the green room was called the Departure Lounge.
Funny.
Yeah.
So it must have been a high time in the life of a young woman.
It was pretty heady.
Right.
I got a lot of backup singing, and
so good.
It was, but how lucky. Things like that, don't happen to people.
Well, they happen to people. Often you hear about people who've like spent their whole lives sort of like greasing the wheels of good fortune, and then it finally comes.
Yeah.
But plenty of people just get a break right away.
It was pretty amazing.
And so how long did the singing thing go on?
It went
you still
on
sing?
Again, I sort of reverted back to the bathtub again.
Uh-huh. Can we?
I mean, I love music.
Can we hear the double time bridge if someone walked over me? All right. Well, cheers. Here's to you and coming in and for bringing this lovely bourbon. What is this? Is this a special bourbon to you?
No, my husband got this I have to put more water in mine or else I'll get drunk immediately.
Yeah. Well, that might not be bad. It might make for good radio.
Anyway, so, that was just like one of the most wonderful things. I mean, I sang with Bruce Springsteen a few times and I had like it was really fun. And I was writing and I had a group of women that I sang backups with. And
when you say writing, you were writing music?
Yeah.
Okay.
I was writing and
let me ask, when you said you were an artsy high school kid, was the artsiness singing mostly, or were you in visual arts as well?
It was mostly music.
Uh-huh. You play
It was
instruments?
mostly cutting school and going to Robbie Kogel's house.
Uh-huh.
I'm really lucky that I graduated. I'm really lucky.
And did you graduate eventually from, was it Rutgers?
I
with sociology?
Graduated with a undergraduate, but I didn't get my graduate degree.
Okay. And was that going to be in sociology as well?
Yes.
All right. So back to Manhattan, you're singing, you're doing backup. You sang with the Boss. You're singing jazz and rock and roll. Where did you think that was going to go?
Well, what happened was I was doing some backups. I got hired to do some backups. And it was like a whole album. And I fell in love with the recording engineer. And he fell in love with me. And so that was my son's father.
Oh, wow.
And I was with Tony for 12 years. And during that time, I decided not to be a performer because I was so scared all the time. I mean, I felt very at home in a recording studio, but not performing in front of an audience.
Interesting. And so you thought reasonably, like, all right, that's not really what I should be doing.
Yeah, so I decided that I had always been a writer. Since I was 12 years old, I have books of stories and books of, I wrote all these crazy poems and I have lots of notebooks. I still have them and I look at them. I was a pretty deep kid. And I decided that I wanted to concentrate on writing. And after I got divorced from my husband, I met this man named Christian Blackwood, who was a very amazing documentary filmmaker. And we fell in love.
So you and Tony lasted like 10 or 11 years.
12 years.
12 years. You had a kid. And then it ran its course. And you met this other guy, Christian Blackwood.
Christian Blackwood.
Who was a documentary filmmaker.
But yes, he made like 90 documentary films. He was from Germany. And he was just a wonderful person in the film world. And we had a lovely 5 years together, and then he got cancer and died.
Oof.
When I was 40 and he was 50.
Right.
So that was, and we got married like 2 months before he died.
Yeah.
Because he really wanted to do that. So.
Why was that important to him to do that before he passed?
I was sort of surprised by that. I don't know why. I don't know why it was important.
Right.
I guess he just. I don't know why. I didn't need it, but it was important to him.
Mm-hmm.
So we did. We got married. As a matter of fact, we got married in the Great Barrington area.
Oh yeah.
And it was a beautiful wedding, and then he died like 7 weeks later.
And you wrote about that in a beautiful article in the New York Times called "The Wedding Gift." which everybody should Google and read. I'm going to start crying now just remembering it. It was so beautiful. And if you don't mind, I'm just gonna read a couple of sentences from the end of it. I'm reading. You want to read it? Okay. This is Carolyn's. Well, in this article, I watched myself put the wedding tape into the VCR. I anticipated the pain, but there he was, my darling, smiling. He was happy. It was so good to see him laugh. I laughed with him, and the tears didn't stop rolling down my cheeks. And then at that moment, my memory gave me its first gift. Christian, the exact look on his face, the exact tone of his voice as he turned to me weeks before and had said, the wedding was the best day of my life. What was left when all was said and done was the love.
Yeah.
It's just the whole thing is just lovely.
Thank you.
And
it was the strangest thing. I wrote that for the hers column. I mean, like, I'm showing how old I am because, like, VCRs, what's a VCR? You know, the tape. But I wrote that. I felt like I had to write about it. I'm not quite sure why, but I felt like I had made this incredible discovery that the love never dies.
Right.
That's what, you know, like I write about, like, how I was trying to find him, and I would go to the closet and smell his clothes and look for him, and I couldn't find him.
Right.
Because all that stuff was just stuff. And it made me very unmaterialistic after that. My housekeeper's apartment looked exactly like my apartment because I got rid of all my possessions. I gave her my whole dining room. I just got rid of everything.
Why?
Because I just wanted the bare minimum. I felt like stuff was it was just stuff.
Right.
It had disappointed me, all that stuff.
Right.
You know?
It didn't help you hold on to what really
mattered.
mattered.
It didn't. It wasn't important. Even his stuff wasn't that important.
Right.
So it was, I realized what was important. And there was this woman who was an older woman who said to me, she wrote me this note. She was an old friend of Christian's. And she said, at the end of a letter, she said, I know that you don't feel this now, but everything has its gifts. And I wanted to punch her at the time because, honestly, this didn't feel like a gift.
No.
But now that I'm ancient, it's true. And the gift that I got from that was how fragile everything is and how we have to appreciate the moment, and we have to love our lives and love other people and not take anything for granted.
Right.
And I think everyone knows that, but it became very immediate knowing that.
People know that maybe intellectually, but not so much emotionally.
Yeah.
I mean, everything has its gifts for people who have the emotional intelligence to find the gifts in things. I don't think they're inherently there. And one of the things that I love so much in researching and reading your writing is the attitude of thankfulness, the gratitude that seems to have been a major part of your life. And since when, I don't know, but definitely since Christian passed away.
Well, I have to say that I feel so lucky. I mean, who was in a practice room and Bob Cranshaw walks in?
Yeah.
You know? But the same thing happened again in the Morton Library.
Oh, do tell.
I moved here, and I have this view of the river.
What year did you move to Rhinecliff?
2006.
Okay.
I'm on a cliff, and I overlook the river. I look north up the river, and it looks different every day, and it is so beautiful. And I had been taking pictures since I was a little girl. My dad was a fantastic photographer, and I used to go and take pictures, and we'd go in the dark room and develop, our pictures.
You and your dad, that sounds like a wonderful thing.
It was great. And I had been, like doing it for the family and for gatherings, and all my family thought I was a really good photographer, But I loved doing it. And I started taking pictures of the river. And the Morton Library was having a little library show that was an auction to raise money. And I decided that I would give them a couple of pictures. And they almost didn't accept them because they were full up. But I did these 2 pictures of the lighthouse in the fog and stuff like that. And they sold I printed them myself on like 8x10 paper, and they sold for $800 each.
Wow.
It was then all of a sudden, would you like to be in a show that we're having in May? And my friend Joseph Maresca was curating it. And he put me in the show, and I was thrilled. I was an artist, I was so excited to be in the show. And it was with like around 15 other really wonderful local artists.
Right.
And I had, I guess, around 6 or 8 photographs of the river up. The week before, I had gone to a party, and I had run into this woman named Barbara Rose, who was a very big curator and art historian. And she had done a film with my late husband. So that's how I knew her. I didn't really know her very well. And I said, I'm in an art show at the Morton Library. If you want to come, So she came and saw it. And she said, I really love these. Would you like to be in a show with another photographer and 2 painters that I'm doing in New York at a gallery? I went, okay.
Amazing.
It was sort of like playing softball in the fireman's field, and like the Yankees come and say, do you want to pitch for the Yankees? Right. It was so crazy. And I really didn't know what I was doing technically at the time. But I kind of learned very, very quickly.
And so what did you put in that show? More sort of riverscapes?
River.
Right.
River and sky and water. I was sort of on the edge of abstraction then. I wasn't quite there yet.
Right.
And it was just like, it was the weirdest thing. And then they wanted me to be in that gallery, and I didn't care for the person who was running the gallery. So I decided that if they wanted me, maybe someone else would want me, which is kind of dumb because that doesn't usually work that way. But
right.
Then what happened was I got in touch with this gallery where I went through like all the APAD galleries
online. The what galleries?
APAD, which is the sort of the organization of really, really good photography galleries.
Okay.
And I found this gallery, and I wrote to them. I put like an ice photo on top so that maybe it would get their attention. And then I got a response. And he said, I'm doing a Hudson River show. Maybe I'll have you have a photo in it. So he came to my studio here.
And who's this?
This is Alan Klotz.
Okay.
He had the Alan Klotz Gallery. And at the end, he said to me, I don't want you to be in the Hudson River show. And I went, oh, I'm sorry. And he said, I want you to be an artist in my gallery.
Wow.
So I was with Alan for a long time. And there's the APAD photography show that's in Park Avenue Armory. And I was in that every year, and it was crazy. It was just so crazy.
Again, what an amazing time that must have been in your life.
I was pinching myself. But it was a little strange because I was friends with a lot of artists,
Uh-huh.
and a lot of artists were kind of horrified
Why?
because I just came down in a balloon.
Right. And they'd been like
I don't
toiling
blame
away.
them. I don't blame them.
Yeah, well, I guess they can be envious, when somebody gets the success that they've been working so hard to get,
Yeah.
especially if they float in on a balloon, as you say.
I mean,
And so you have continued to take new photos and to show your work.
yeah, I have galleries, and I have museum shows coming up, and I've had museum shows, and I'm in a wonderful gallery, the Von Lintel Gallery in LA.
Uh-huh.
And I show with David, the Adamson Gallery. And
Now, you just had a show at the Von Lintel Gallery, and I saw those works, and they were a lot more abstract
they're very abstract.
than the stuff that I see more, which is, on Instagram or Facebook.
Well, Instagram and Facebook is sort of like the weather report.
Yeah.
And
Okay.
my gallery work is very different.
The most beautiful weather photos you can imagine.
Thanks.
And I got to ask, because some of them are so rich and delightful, to what degree, if any, do you manipulate them once they're out of the camera?
Oh, that's a very bad question.
It's cheeky. I
it
prefer
is.
rather than bad.
For most of the pictures you see on Instagram or, Facebook,
Mm-hmm.
I crop a lot.
Right.
And I might add a little bit of, like intensity of the color or something like that.
Okay.
But that's about it.
Right. I mean, it's the composition.
I find the photo in the photo.
Right. So do you have, you said it's a bad question, and I translated cheeky.
Well, you know why it's a bad question? It's what I get all the time is like, what lens did you use? And what kind of camera do you have? And I just think, go for the ride.
Right.
Just go for the ride.
But
it doesn't matter.
Lots of artists.
What kind of paint do you use? You don't do that.
But lots of artists, especially photographers, will have rules about oh, no Photoshop. I won't manipulate the image at all.
You know what? That's old. I am doing... Am I allowed to curse?
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
All right. Whatever the fuck I want to do, I'm doing.
That's good. To make a beautiful image.
To make... I don't know if it's beautiful to anyone else, but if it's beautiful to me.
Right.
Honestly, if I was just showing my stuff on Facebook or Instagram, I do it for me.
Yeah.
I'm not thinking about, should I do this?
Right.
And I'm doing some really wild stuff now. I'm doing some digital sort of weirdness. I shouldn't really talk about it, but
you should. Do you work with AI at all?
No, I'm not there. I don't want to do that.
Right, but someday maybe.
I'm open, but I like creating. I don't want it to create for me.
Right.
I want to create.
Right. Huh. So back to the abstraction at the Von Lintel Gallery.
Yeah, I've been doing abstraction for a long time now.
Yeah, and do you have shows, which are mixed abstraction and more sort of representational or realistic?
They're getting pretty abstract.
Yeah, and so that's sort of where you're...
Well, I have one series that's going to be in a museum that I had big shows all over Europe, and it was called the Story Series, and it was pictures from this Hamlet.
Right.
And from Rhinebeck.
And there's a book of the Story Series.
Yeah, that's the one I gave you.
Yeah, it's a gorgeous book.
And so I took I was wandering around in storms and wandering around the neighborhood, and I would look at a house and I'd think, what is going on in that house? So I would make up what was going on.
So that's the writing underneath each photo is what was popping into your head.
What was popping into my head. And it's supposed to be the catalyst for someone to make their own story, jump off of it and make their own story. I mean, I've had people stand in front of the work and start crying because their story was so sad. I mean, there'll be a picture of a house. Let me give you an example. A picture of a house. And I forgot like exactly what the quote is, but I remember. And it's a picture of a house at sunset. So it's in silhouette, but there's a light on in the house. And the blurb underneath is, every night he longed for her. Every night he longed for her.
Right.
And so it's like a person who's looking at that house. And so the interpretation is, some people said, oh, she died.
Right.
And he's longing for her. And other people said, oh, it's unrequited love, and he longs for her. And then someone else said that it's a stalker. So everyone, like, it's sort of like, you can tell a lot about a person from their interpretation.
Right. But what a treat to create something that's so evocative, universally evocative.
Yeah. And I've had people crying in front of them.
Right.
Like, that just blows me away.
Yeah, the blurbs, as you call them, were really great. They were very much like little story fragments.
Yeah.
There seemed to be, but I read the whole thing. There seemed to be not a lot of subjects. There was a male subject, a female subject, and maybe another
adolescence. There's some adolescents running away from home. And
right. Did you have at all people in mind, or was it just a story?
It was
with
partly
undefined
biographical.
Okay.
And partly other people's lives, and partly made up.
Okay.
And it doesn't matter which is which.
Okay. And the last line in the book is this: he could see his young self tilling the fields. He knew that the land would outlive him. It's great. It's a great last line. And it's still very evocative. It works with the image to invite interpretation.
Yeah.
Yeah. So where can people get this book, this story series?
It's on Amazon.
Okay. Carolyn Marks Blackwood on Amazon, the story series book.
Yeah.
And that quote, he knew that the land would outlive him. A perfect segue into this other work you do, which is environmental work.
Oh, yeah. I'm on the board of Riverkeeper.
Uh-huh.
And, oh boy, this is the part that makes me a little tired.
Okay.
Because I feel like I'm just when you get done fighting something else pops up.
Right.
And there's lots of stuff happening on the river right now that isn't good.
Right. All kinds of stuff. There's barges,
all kinds of stuff.
There's lights, there's
the Chippy, which is passed by our governor, did not stop it. And it's this wire coming down from Canada where they actually dammed indigenous people's lands to make this electricity. And so 300 and something miles away, they're bringing electricity to New York City.
By putting a wire in the bottom of the Hudson River?
They're jet plowing 7 feet down to put this wire in, which, disrupts all the sediment and isn't really great.
So it's a focused water jet.
But it's happening. And another thing was the discharge of the water, the radioactive water.
Indian Point.
From Indian Point. And there's another thing happening. I'm saying red alert. We're trying to suss it out, but I don't want to really talk about it until there's a really good plan. But the anchorage thing is back. Right now, anyone can anchor anywhere between New York Harbor and Kingston. They love Kingston because it's the last place that they can anchor before the Albany, before they go to Albany, because they can swing. And so...
That makes me think about the wire of the electrical wire. I mean, I guess that's in the bottom and it's not in danger of getting an anchor dropped on it.
That was a thought I had last night. I have to check that out.
Right. And so Riverkeeper, you've been working with them for a while.
I've been on Riverkeeper. I joined Riverkeeper because I was very inspired by the Riverkeeper, John Lipscomb.
The Riverkeeper what?
John Lipscomb.
Okay.
He's the reason, a lot of the reason that I joined Riverkeeper. He's like, he knows everything about the river. He's a passionate advocate for the river. He's a poet. The way he talks about the river, I mean, he's so inspiring. You should have John Lipscomb.
Okay. Does he live around here?
Yeah, he's up and down the river
Okay.
8 months of the year living on his boat.
That'd be great. Hook me up.
I'll hook you up. He's fantastic. Yeah, I mean, the river is so sacred. And people are starting to really enjoy it, and they feel a sense of pride and ownership in waterfronts and, sailing.
Right. The Rhinecliff waterfront, such as it is, the boat launch is amazing. It's so beautiful.
Yeah.
And you live on a perch sort of overlooking the river from which you shoot all these beautiful photos. Do you get out on the river very often?
I sort of feel like I'm on the river. I sort of feel like I'm on a boat.
Nice.
I mean, the weather, I have no buffer against the weather. So I treat my house like it's a boat. I leave the house for 5 minutes, everything's put away. I've had like 80, 90 mile an hour winds there.
Right.
Last year was crazy. There was a tornado in the Hudson, and there was this storm that was so crazy that it scared the living daylights out of me. I had never experienced anything like it.
Do you have like a storm shelter or something?
Well, I can go downstairs in the basement.
Okay.
But it's not a designated one. I mean,
Right.
The storms are getting different. In the time that I've been here, they're really different.
Right. And it's 22 years, is that it?
No, I think it's like 16, 17 years.
Oh,
but
okay.
in that time, I have felt the difference.
Huh. Well, maybe it's time to put in a dedicated storm cellar.
Oh, God.
Ah.
Crazy.
Well, let me just swerve slightly here. In addition to your photography, which has brought you a lot of acclaim and renown and a lot of sales and this beautiful book, you also work in film. You work in the movies.
I've been working in the movies with my partner, Gabby Tanna, since 1992, and officially since 1997.
Okay.
And it took us around 10 years to make our first film. We just never gave up. It's just sort of a lesson, like, don't give up.
And what was that film?
The Duchess.
Okay.
And we've been making films ever since. And our new film is called Firebrand.
Uh-huh.
And it just premiered in competition at Cannes.
Oh, nice.
Yeah.
Did that just happen?
It just happened this week.
Oh, nice.
Was it this week? Yeah, this week.
And so that's a competition, but also sort of a sales convention, right? Is it?
Yeah, but yeah,
and so
definitely. There's a market.
Where will it be next, this film?
It's not out yet. I mean, we don't, we're just getting our distributors now.
Okay. But can people see like a trailer or something on it?
Not yet.
Nothing. Wow. So you get a distributor, you sign up.
I mean, one of the things about being in Cannes in competition is that they want to be the first. So.
Right. But don't all the film festivals, wouldn't they all like to be the first?
Yeah.
And is Cannes like the most prestigious film festival?
I think there are a few that are very prestigious. I think
Sundance.
Venice. Well, Sundance is really for very independent. It isn't for I mean, it can be for European films, but Sundance is more like sort of an indie venue.
And is Firebrand a European film?
Yes, all our films are made in the UK.
Oh, okay. I saw one. I don't watch a lot of films, I'm sorry, but I saw The Dig a couple of years ago.
Yeah.
I saw it advertised somewhere, and for some reason I thought, oh, that looks good. I don't like period pieces either.
Uh-oh.
And I thought, oh, well, that looks good. And I watched it. It was so amazing.
Oh, thanks.
Yeah, it was.
Yeah, that's one of my favorite films that we did. We also did Philomena. We've done a bunch of films that I'm proud of.
And are there films on the drawing board now?
Yes.
Coming up?
And I'm writing some of them. So, they're in different stages of, pre-production or.
And is this your first screenplay?
No, I've been writing screenplays for a long time, but this is the first time that sort of 4 of them are being thought of that they should be done.
4 screenplays?
Yeah.
So all of a sudden, you've been working on these for ages and ages. All of a sudden, 4 of them are sort of in play.
Yeah, I mean, one of them that's going to be done by the guy that just did Firebrand, the director, Kareem. I wrote it in 1987. So that's crazy.
And so will that be your first movie produced?
We'll see which one goes first.
But have you written movies that have been produced in the past?
No.
So this will be the first time.
These will be the first.
It's just amazing.
I know, I'm a late bloomer, I think.
Yeah, but you're blooming like mad. It's an enormous garden.
So there's one other thing that happened, and that I've had this fantasy about making beautiful scarves out of like water and sunsets and stuff like that. And 8 of my pictures were turned into cashmere scarves that are going to come out on Monday.
Monday? Who's putting them out?
This guy has a store. Oh God. Uh-oh.
Somebody saw one of them or somewhere and said, I want to do a bunch of them.
Yeah. And they're beautiful scarves. I'll put them on Instagram and say where you can get them and
Facebook and stuff.
Yeah.
Huh.
So that's happening on Monday. It's kind of crazy.
And so do you have dreams of other things that you want that are evidently going to come true?
Yes, I'm going to write a novel. And I've been thinking about this novel since I was 35.
And what's it about?
It's about an older woman writing her memoir. It's a historical, I always say a hysterical, novel, but it's a historical novel of a woman who's in her 80s writing about her life.
So loosely based on you in 15, 20 years or?
Loosely based on my imagination.
Okay.
And history.
Okay.
I shouldn't have brought it up because you can't talk about these things.
Why not?
Because they do get diluted.
Do you believe that?
Yes, I do. All the energy around it has to stay intact.
Right. I've heard so many creative people say that.
Oh, yeah. That's why I was kind of ambivalent about coming here because I'd so much rather just do it than talk about it.
Right. But it's fascinating and maybe inspiring for people to hear about somebody who's doing it.
Yeah,
as
maybe.
You said,
just don't give up, anyone. If you have a dream, just don't give up. Don't give up.
Okay, thank you. I haven't yet. Wow, a novel. So do you have some pages of it finished?
Yeah, I have the first 20 pages, but I started them when I was too young
That's funny.
I knew that I had to wait. So when I'm done with all these screenplays, and I have a few more up my sleeve in the series, I will just write this novel.
When you're done with all these screenplays, plus the other screenplays, I mean, that sounds like 10 years.
No,
No.
I would say 3 years
Okay.
and I'm sort of thinking about it. And I have timelines now, historical timelines.
Right.
And it's almost like Zelig, you know, this woman's life.
Right.
Like
Which
she
is
is there.
not that totally different than your artistic life, right? You're singing, you're photographing, you're making movies.
Doesn't that sound kind of, it sounds a little dilettante. It sounds like a little
heard,
suspicious.
I don't like that word. It doesn't sound suspicious to me. It sounds delightful that, here's somebody, who thinks, oh, I want to do that. And you're doing it. And
that was another thing. I think that I never felt the barrier. Like maybe there's something wrong with me that I didn't feel it, but I have never, like, for instance, when I was like 21 and I was in school, I called up Odetta, the singer.
Uh-huh.
I looked her up in the phone book.
Love that.
And I said, "Hi, is this Odetta?" And she said, "Yes, it is." And I said, "I'm a singer. I was wondering, would you give me singing lessons?"
I love
And
that.
she said, "Why don't you come?" And I told her what I was doing. She said, "Why don't you come to my house next week and we'll discuss it?" So I went to her house on Fifth Avenue and I played and I sang for her. I played the piano and sang for her. And she said, "Okay, we can do this."
Wow.
And that's like, someone said, I would never have the guts to do that. Like I would never just call someone up cold. And so I guess I just never gave myself boundaries. I mean, I try things that, also the other thing is I try things that I'm not in my comfort zone
Right.
all the time. Like I try things that,
Example.
well, everything that I've talked about,
Right.
actually,
At some point wasn't in your comfort zone.
no.
Right.
And
So why do you think you have this? Do you just have no fear of failure, or do you have a fear of not trying, or is it just
I failed so much that I kind of like, I fail and then I move on. It isn't like, do you know what I mean? Like I have failed so much at a lot of things.
right?
And it doesn't, and it's sort of like, okay, well, on to the next.
And of all the creative pursuits that you're currently engaged in, and there's a bunch: screenwriting, historical fiction writing, movie making and producing, and photography and abstract photography. Of all of these, which one really is most special in your heart?
They each have, I think that right now I'm going back and forth between writing and photography, because when I'm done writing, if I've written 6 hours and my brain is like done,
Right.
I go to photography because it uses a completely different part of my brain. I do
Right.
photography every day.
Right. And both of those are also solitary pursuits.
Yeah.
Whereas making a film is
Making a
immensely
film has
collaborative.
a cast of a gazillion. So with the
Right.
photography, it's sort of mine.
Uh-huh.
It's mine.
And
Good, bad, or indifferent. It's mine.
And are you, so there's a lot of control in that. Are you a control freak creatively? Do you feel that?
I think that any person who's creating is kind of a control freak. If you're creating a world, like for instance, I'm working with a director now on a screenplay who's giving me notes to change the screenplay I wrote. And I'm trying not to bristle.
Right.
I'm trying to be open to their suggestions and do the best I can to implement their vision, because my screenplay is going to be their vision.
Right.
But it's not the easiest thing for me.
Right.
I do feel a little proprietary.
Sure.
But
once you give that over into the hands of the director and all the other people working on the film, it seems like you'd have to release to some degree.
Yeah, you have to. It's like letting your kid go out into the world.
Right.
They're not going to be who you thought they would be.
And you've got a kid. You've got one child.
I've got a great son, named Gabriel.
Everybody says, and I talk to everybody in town about you leading up to this interview, everybody says, oh my God, the son is amazing.
Yeah, Gabriel is one of the most wonderful people. He's a wonderful person.
How? In what ways is he so wonderful?
He's a wonderful human being.
Mm-hmm.
He's a very compassionate person. Right. And a lot of fun. I mean, when he was a kid, he was making me laugh when he was 3. Right. You know, like he was just hysterical. He had this wry sense of humor when he was like 3.
And is he creative as well?
He's very creative, but he's decided to be in business. He rebelled and he went into business.
Nice. And he runs a fund, but not with Karl Marx.
No.
I'll never not
He's all
appreciate that.
He's on his own.
Uh-huh. But it's a socially and environmentally conscious.
He got his MBA in sustainable investing, or sustainable MBA at Bard.
Nice.
Where he was an undergraduate.
Huh. And then he went out and started this fund with an emphasis on sustainable investing.
What happened with him was that he was working at the Bard Prison Initiative for like a long time, and he, as an undergraduate, and then he became, an employee. And he would drive to prison. He would go like, Mom, I'm on my way to prison, and to my mother, I'd say, I'm sorry, Gabriel can't come. He has to go to prison, But he was driving with this friend, and they would kind of like invest, not with real money, but like in their imagination. And that's how they became partners and made this investment fund.
Oh, that's wonderful. And they're making a good go at it.
They're making a good go at it.
There was a great saying I think about a lot. It was a coach for like the Yankees or something, this guy Branch Rickey, who said, luck is the residue of design. And It sounds like you've worked hard to make the design such that it would attract all these wonderful things into your life.
Yeah.
You have money now, and you support local causes and environmental causes and stuff. And I'm guessing that your dad working for Karl Marx is a Wall Street sort of thing.
Well, my dad had to give all his money to the state. No, he didn't.
For those who needed it most.
Right. My parents, yes, my family was fortunate, and we were brought up to not value money. We were brought up to value people. Honestly,
wonderful.
It was about people. It wasn't about money. And I think that the world is divided into 2 parts: people who care about money and people who care about people.
Right. And you're clearly the latter. Are your siblings all in that camp, or do you want to take the fifth on that?
We're all like that.
That's wonderful.
And I think, when I was 17, I left home. And I put myself through college. I didn't talk to my parents for 5 years.
Yeah, you said at one point you turned your back on all of that money.
Yeah.
And let's hear it. How come? What happened between you and your folks?
Well, I was 17 and I was very rebellious, and I was not getting along with my parents and my poor parents. And I just left. I joined the commune, and my boyfriend, at one point, we were selling our blood to have dinner because there was a taxi strike. There was a taxi strike, and he was driving a cab.
Right. and living in the commune?
We were living on Baltic Street, on Warren Street in Brooklyn, which
Okay.
at the time was not the Brooklyn of today. It was very, very, it was very dangerous and very funky. I mean, it wasn't the gentrified version of today.
And so you had a falling out with your folks,
Mm-hmm.
and you didn't speak to them for a spell, I'm guessing. How did the reconciliation come to pass?
I don't remember.
You what?
I actually don't remember. I think it was like when I was in college. I put myself through school, but it was a state school.
Right.
I worked as a waitress at Alice's restaurant.
Nice.
Also, when I was in Tribeca, I sold cheesecakes to Dina and DeLuca. I made cheesecakes for Dina and DeLuca while I was trying to make money singing, and I was a waitress at the Beach Street Bar on my loading dock. You know what I mean? Like, I guess I knew that if everything went really bad, and there was a time when I got sick and I needed to go to doctors and stuff, and I did turn to my mother when that happened. But
and how were they when you turned back to them?
they were the same as they had always been, but they were, they were happy to see me, I guess.
Yeah.
My parents were, they weren't normal parents. They were sort of my dad was one of the founders of Lincoln Center.
Oh, wow.
And they were very city-centric.
Uh-huh.
So they weren't around all that much, So, but then I was very lucky because the last 6 years of my dad's life, who I didn't know at all, and he didn't know me, we got really close.
What a treat.
It was like one day he just said to me, "Do you want to go for a drive?"
Yeah.
And so we went for this drive and we just talked. And he said to me, "Wow, you're a really interesting person."
And where did you drive from? And from Manhattan?
No, it was a drive in Europe.
Oh, okay.
And it just was like the best drive because we got to be really close and we just talked the rest of his life every day.
And did you have a similar sort of opening of channels of getting to know each other with your mom at that point?
Not really. I mean, I love my mom. My mom is 93 and still with us.
Oh, nice.
And, my dad was sort of more a creative person.
Right.
And we sort of had a meeting of the minds.
How lovely. What a wonderful thing to
I'm
have been
so
able
lucky
to do
that happened.
Right.
Otherwise, I would have just never known him.
Yeah. Huh. And I can't imagine your mom didn't think on some level like, oh, I would love to have that same thing with my daughter.
Oh, yeah. I mean, I do have a closeness with my mom that's like this very animal.
Sure.
I
Right.
was born on her birthday.
Nice. Which is when?
Which is August 21st.
Okay. And so your upbringing with your parents sounds like it was up and down. And has that informed a lot of how you raised your son?
Well, I went to therapy.
Well, there you go. So I'll take that as a yes.
And, well, actually, I'm going to say no.
No. Okay.
And I'll tell you why.
Yeah.
Because I didn't want to say, I'm not going to raise my son like my parents. I'm going to do it like this. What I did end up saying was, I'm going to listen to what he needs. It has nothing to do with what I need. Do you know what I mean? Like,
Yeah, sure.
instead of like it being about me, it became about my son.
Right. That's great.
Which
And
is sort of,
ideal.
bypassing the, I'm not going to be like my parents.
It is, I guess you could say that, though you were in so doing actually not being like your parents. And are you close to your son now?
Very,
What
very
a-
close. We go walking all the time. He's half here and half in Brooklyn.
oh, nice.
And he has a wonderful girlfriend named Sasha,
Uh-huh.
who he's been with for 10 years.
Where
And they're
the,
happy.
where the heck are the grandkids? Is he listening now?
He will.
Yeah.
But
Come on.
you know what? I'm not doing that.
Yeah, that's good.
He's happy.
Yeah.
As long as he's happy. And what a world. I'm sort of one foot in where the grandkids, and the other foot is what a world to bring kids into.
Right. Yeah. One of the things, and if anybody's listening, you don't follow Carolyn Marks Blackwood on Facebook, do so, or at least go to her page, because over and over and over again, you have these beautiful images and you say the world is still beautiful.
Yeah, that was sort of an Instagram. I was saying that to myself.
Well,
I was saying that, like, Carolyn, the world is still beautiful. The world is still beautiful. Trying to talk myself into it.
Okay.
But
for me,
did.
reading it, they're lovely words. I'm not thinking like, oh, you're trying to talk yourself into that. It might have passed my mind. I'm just thinking, what a beautiful, a thought to live by. The world is still beautiful.
There's a lot of shit in the world, and there are horrible things that are happening, and they can really bring you down.
Sure.
But there still are beautiful things.
And time after time, because you post a lot of political stuff, especially environmental stuff, on your social media, and a lot of it's really depressing. And then to see a beautiful sunset and these words, the world is still beautiful.
Yeah.
It's really wonderful.
I really do think that beauty can change the trajectory of someone's life. And I can't tell you how, like there have been a few times when I didn't post for a few days and I'd start getting letters that said like, hey, I'm in the hospital and I'm counting on you to post something that'll make me feel better.
Right.
I mean, that is like mind-blowing to me. That's like, wow, I didn't know anyone was out there.
You must have felt that before social media with the things that you're creating, the singing, the movies, whatever, that beauty can change the trajectory of someone's life.
Yeah, I think it can. And kindness. Haven't you ever been in a bad mood?
Right.
And you'll have to call Spectrum, or you'll run into somebody at a store, or some bureaucrat. You're getting your license,
right?
And you run into someone who is so wonderful and so nice, and they change the trajectory of your day.
Right, and who knows what that might change?
Yeah, I mean, you can change the trajectory of another person's day.
Well, that's a perfect place to end. So, thank you. You can change the trajectory of someone's day, and you do, Carolyn Marks Blackwood, in so many ways. And thank you, because you've changed the trajectory of my days.
Oh, thanks.
And so many other people. And thank you so much for that. Thank you for being here in the Nook at the Epicurean in beautiful downtown Rhinecliff, New York, talking with me on this show. And if you're listening online some other day, not now alive, then have a great day, and go visit Carolyn Marks Blackwood's Facebook page or Instagram page, or your website, which is what?
CM Blackwood, but it hasn't been updated for a long time.
No, but still there's lots of bodies of work on there, and it's a good place to go. Thanks for listening, everybody. Have a great day, whatever day it is.